Depth at cornerback. Are the corners on the Eagles good enough in general? That's some of the questions that we're going to answer today. Brennan Albert is here. I am Adrian Fedke. Safeties, cornerbacks, that's on the agenda here.
It's a very interesting debate. I think I've been pretty cool. You're going to go on Twitter and you see, draft Twitter really debating this from all the Eagles fans is, well, we have a lot of depth. We have a lot of guys signed. Great. But then the flip side is a lot of guys are saying, yeah, but are any of these guys studs? I mean, are we really sure about Sidney Jones, or are we really confident that Ronald Darby is a long-term number one corner? And I think those both statements are fair. And I think it's a great exercise here again, because if we're having this conversation, you can bet your ass that the guys in the GM spots and in the front office there for the Eagles are also having that conversation too.
Now the question is there that stud cornerback for the Eagles at 25? Because I'm not so sure.
Man, it's going to be really interesting because, I think there's so many corners this year that could all make a case for being the number one guy because they do bring in different things. So it really will come down to what is your defense looking for, right? If you're a cover 2 team, if you're a cover 3 team, if you're a man-free team, you will have very, very different opinion as far as who's your top couple guys. So this exercise me and Adrian are going to do is basically just on our general opinion. But you know what? If you told me, okay, you're a cover 3 team, I'm probably going to have guys ranked differently.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I guess we'll just get right into the rankings then, and we'll talk about safety later because there's a guy that seems like the Eagles are interested in. I'm not sure if they'll take him in the first round, but I've heard a birdie say that they're really into this guy, so we'll see. But cornerbacks, we're starting at number one. My number one guy is Greedy Williams out of LSU. Best man corner in this class, big, long, and fast. That's my number one guy here. So the question with him is going to be, not physical, kind of soft, especially with the tackling. We'll let you kind of talk about that.
He's my number one guy too as well. He came into this year as the number one corner in the class. He's going to leave the year as my number one corner in the class. Adrian, you said it perfectly. 6'1", 182 pounds, ran more than fast enough at the combine, long arms, checks all the measurable boxes, plays really good man coverage. That's his game. Now, the flip side, if you want to be the guy and say, okay, what does he need to improve on? Run support and physicality. Okay, no doubt about it. He definitely was not great, especially this year. This year, he looked far worse than he was in years past. However, he did have a shoulder injury, and I think it's also fair to say probably was making some business decisions when he was looking at tackles, saying, I got a sore shoulder. Do I really need to light this guy up, or can I just guide him out of bounds, right? LSU wasn't playing for a national championship once they had that early loss. So then I think the conversation becomes, I'm just going to mail it in and take care of myself. And I know a lot of people don't love that support or that comment, but that's the reality of it. But that said, Adrian, he's my number one guy. To me personally, I'm not looking for a guy that's going to light you up as a corner. I just need a guy to make sure that you're at least going to hold on for dear life until the rest of the team can get there to get the tackle done. So Greedy's my number one guy, Adrian.
There it is. All right, number 2, Deandre Baker out of Georgia. A really physical guy. He's going to be a press corner, run support player. So there's my number 2 out of Georgia, Deandre Baker.
So my number 2 is going to be Byron Murphy here. And I hear everything you said there, and I think they're both really fair comments comparing the two. Byron Murphy here, he's a little bit of a prick, and I like that. I mean that in the nicest way possible.
No, prick is the one position that you want. Or cornerback is the one position that you want to prick at. And you can
100%. Fluid lower body guy. I think this might be the best guy that we could see playing in the slot at the next level of the group here. He's very, very physical. He's willing to come up and run support. I think the biggest knock I would have on him is I worry a little bit about how is he going to do when he gets the bigger guys and the guys who are going to put him in the red zone. But my response would be well, I'm going to play him in the slot to kind of get him away from those guys. And if there is a tight end they're moving to the slot, then I'm going to have him shadow outside for maybe a smaller receiver.
Yeah, he is physical for a smaller guy. That stature is why I put Baker ahead of him, ahead of Murphy. So I do have him at number 3.
Yeah, and that's totally fair because then my number 3 is Baker. And Baker, I mean, they're really, really similar as far as height, weight. I mean, they're very, very similar. The only thing that if I'm going to say, what do I like more about Murphy? I like Murphy's physicality a little bit more as far as run
Yeah.
support. And I also like his vision on the ball. Does a really great job, especially if I could play him in like a cover 2 system. Man, I'd really love him a lot. Now, when I look at Deandre Baker, Baker's big and physical, but he doesn't have as great speed as you would want, especially when you look at him testing. That said, you put on the tape when he's playing in the SEC, he's able to carry guys like the Alabamas and the LSU and the Ole Miss receivers down the field. So I just kind of question a little bit his speed. The other thing you have to talk about Baker, a lot of reports came out that he did not interview well.
Yeah.
And that's something that if, again, you look at a class like this where the corners are all really tight, something like not interviewing well, unfortunately, that can make and break you from being the number 1 guy to the number 4 guy really quick.
Do you know what Murphy weighed in at the combine? Because he
I
looks
want to
like
say he came in around the 180 mark, if I remember.
so he did get to 180 because he looks like he's like 170, 175.
Yeah. And now the other thing I always want to say here too, folks, is when you come into the combine, that's water weight. I mean, guys are going to blow up, step on the scale, and then immediately kind of start shedding and to actually go into, their pro days. They're probably not going to weigh in because they don't need to because they've already, blown up. And then from there, they'll start shredding. So, he's a good example. Obviously, Kyle Murray is the greatest example of a guy who he's going to blow up, but he's not going to play at that weight.
Yep. All right, number 4. This might be a biased pick, but that's okay. I'm going to go with him. Rock Ya-Sin out of Temple. Respect the T, baby. So you're going to have a really physical press corner here, quick feet, loose hips, and a guy who went to Presbyterian before he enrolled at Temple University. So shout out to Rock Ya-Sin. Presbyterian to start his career.
Yeah, it's always pretty badass when you have a guy who was, a former D2 player all of a sudden being talked about a potential number 1 corner or number 1 position in the first round. It's pretty badass,
Definitely.
But, I mean, the cool thing, too, about Rock, and you're probably going to hear this talked off, and you're going to have your ear talked off about this. 2-time state wrestler. You know what? Those little things matter. So, folks, if you have young people in your lives, tell them to wrestle, especially at the corner position or defensive position. It translates so well. Rock is my number 4 guy as well, Adrian. Man, he's physical. He was a guy who went down to the Senior Bowl and really helped himself a lot. He gave Deebo Samuel a lot of trouble, which is perfect because Deebo was the best receiver. Rock showed that he could stay with them. Very, very physical. I think the one thing that separates him from the other guy, from like Baker, he's got a little more speed than Baker, which is what you want to see. The flip is what you're negative. Let's just be honest, Adrian. It's the American Conference. It's not the SEC. So, you could also be the guy that says, look, I could also say this is maybe a one-hit wonder. Maybe this is not a guy who, if you put him in the SEC or the ACC or the Big Ten, he's able to do that week in and week out because, in all due respect, he gets to play UConn once a year. He gets to play schools like Toledo once a year. He's not playing Miami and FSU and Clemson week in and week out. So if you're going to be the glass is half empty, you're going to say, hey, schedule didn't help him. But when you looked at him, when he went to the Senior Bowl and the lights were bright, he shined.
Yeah. All right, number 5. I'm going to go with Lonnie Johnson here out of Kentucky. Really tall, 6'3", 205, but really smooth and good footwork for a guy that tall. A little surprise here maybe. Lonnie Johnson, Kentucky, number 5.
I don't think so because I think, again, it depends on what you're looking for, right? Like, let's go to, like, Seattle. Seattle plays that cover 3, the long corners. So what other teams run that? Atlanta, Los Angeles. So there's a lot of teams, who, the Los Angeles Chargers, that is, that are looking for those longer corners that are going to be able to play a lot of the cover 3 stuff and have the long arms. So Lonnie Johnson being 6'3", 206 pounds, big dude. The player comp is easy. It's Richard Sherman. I mean, his worst trait is press coverage. He's more along the lines of, playing that cover 3. I think, Adrian, for a team like the Chargers, it's very realistic he could be their number 1 corner over the rest of the guys because of the fit that he has in that system. My number 5 guy, though, is going to be Trayvon Mullen. To me, when I'm looking at defensive players, I want to know, can you take the ball away? Can you be aggressive? Interceptions are great, but also force fumbles. Trayvon Mullen is absolutely a ball hawk at the corner position. If you don't believe me, go watch the game he played against Alabama. You talk about the biggest stage, and the guy played exceptionally well. 6'2", 190, so he checks this physicality and the size box that you're concerned with. The one thing that if you notice about him, not great with feet. I mean, he's not exceptional with his lower half, but man, he does a great job at somehow closing on the ball. I really would like to get him in a position like if I'm a cover 2 team, if I think about a team like Peanut Tillman as a great example. He's a guy that I saw a lot of similarities, a lot of ball production. So it's hard for me not to love Trayvon Mullen here, Adrian, when he's able to take the ball away.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right, so we've got our top 5 corners. Now we're going to move on to safety. And the question here is, are the Eagles going to attack safety early on in the draft? Because, you brought back Roddy McLeod, you signed Andrew Sendejo, so you got a couple depth guys, but are they still going to take a guy? What do you think? The guy that I'm hearing is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of Florida. I'm hearing that the Eagles really, really like him to the point where they might draft him in the first round. That's actually what I was told, was that he was going to be the pick. I don't know if that's true or not. There's a reason why I'm not reporting it, but that's the name right now, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of Florida.
I think, Adrian, he is my second odds-on favorite for who the Eagles will pick. Now, again, we're assuming no trades and this, that, and the third, right? I still think that Simmons is the pick here. I still think that's the pick. But if you ask me my second pick, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is my guy. Now, I have him as my number 2 safety, so let me kind of slide him to the side and talk about my number 1 guy first. Okay. Jonathan Abram is my dude. He is my dude from the safety perspective. He reminds me so much of Cam Chancellor. So much of Cam Chancellor because he moved all over the field. If you go watch the Mississippi State games, there's games where he plays defensive end. Then there's games where he'll play the Mike linebacker. Then he'll play the strong safety, then the free safety role. Physical. I mean, you want to talk about how physical this guy is? In the spring game last year, he legitimately blew up one of his teammates so bad that they called the spring game. He literally ended the spring game because he was just flying like a missile, and he's just blowing people up. That's the only way he'll play. So he's going to be a guy. He's probably going to get you a couple pass interference calls. He's probably going to get you some targeting penalties. That's just his game. But he reminds me a lot of Cam Chancellor. So you kind of take the good with the bad. The flip side of him is he's not a great coverage guy. If he could go to a team, say like the Indianapolis Colts, where they have a coverage guy, Malik Hooker, that's Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor all over again. I think he's a first-round pick, Adrian. I don't think it's unrealistic the Eagles could take him. I don't think he'd be as great of a fit next to Malcolm. I think they need more of a coverage guy. Yeah. But if they were looking to replace Malcolm, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, my number 1 is going to be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he would be a perfect fit for the Eagles. You look at his ability to fill any coverage role as a safety. He plays the ball extremely well. So with him, he'd be a perfect fit for Philadelphia. And they're telling me this is going to be the pick. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they're saying.
It's 100% fair, Adrian. Everything you said there is what I would echo. You could be the master of all. You could be jack of all trades, but the master of none. And that's my pro-con about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is, hey, he has a lot of versatility. But at some point in time, you got to figure out where you're going to play him. And that would be the one concern I would have about him. To me, it's a good concern. I'd rather have that than not. Yeah. But I also know that when you look at the NFL, let's talk about Fitzpatrick, who got drafted by the Dolphins last year, right? The concern about him was he a safety? Is he a corner? So he slid a little. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson might slide a little bit. Tell you what, Adrian, if Jeffrey Simmons is gone, this is the guy that Eagles should pick, in my opinion.
Yeah. Who was the kid last year from Stanford? Safety.
Justin Reed.
Yeah, that was another guy. He did a lot of things, but did he have something that stood out? That's what that comment just reminded me of, Justin Reed.
Yeah, totally fair. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a much better coverage guy in the slot. And you know what? The great thing is they brought him and Malcolm in. Every play you do this. You start the 2 safeties up high. You wait to see which side of the offense declares more receivers to. Okay, they roll down. Okay, motion. Okay, we roll down. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do all this motion. We just do this. Makes it much easier on the defense. He would be a great system fit there to play with Malcolm, especially because he's more of the coverage guy while Abram is more of the thumper.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Number 2, it's going to be Nasir Adderley out of Delaware. He's got a background at corner. He's going to be like a center field type. So he's going to be my number 2.
Nope. Hey, that's totally fair. So let me get to my number 3. And this gets kind of tough. For me, this is where I kind of struggle a little bit because I really like Taylor Rapp. I really, really like Taylor Rapp a lot, especially when you go on and you're able to watch his film. Man, he does a lot of really good things. Really good tackler in space. Does a lot of nice jobs of being versatile as well. He can do a lot of things that similar Chauncey Gardiner Johnson can. The flip side is his 40-yard dash time of being a high 4.7s, I think it was a 4.78 at one point, would be the slowest of any safety ever selected in the first 2 rounds. The slowest ever. So that's a really, really big, frightening concern here. But I put on the film, Adrian, and I'm like, he gets to the ball. He gets the ball. He doesn't miss tackles. He does everything fine. He's a guy I think, Adrian, is a very, very low floor. But I also would understand the people who would say, is the ceiling really high? That's why I have him at 3, but I think he's still a good fit.
Yeah. Okay. What are we at? I'm at number 3 now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at number 3. Deonte Thompson is going to be my number 3 guy. Long, lanky center field type. So almost like a Nasir Adderley, but I'm going to go with him at number 3. So
see, and I'm glad you brought him up, Adrian, because going into the year, he was someone that a lot of folks said, "Oh, he's the number 1 guy. He's Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
He's rangy," and all of that was fair. But you know what? You go and you watch the Clemson game, and Trevor Lawrence. I know as good as he is, Trevor Lawrence had Deonte Thompson having no clue where to go, and that's still a freshman. As good as Trevor Lawrence is, he's still a freshman college player, and that was a massive concern. He didn't have as much instincts as I really was hoping for. He gets really caught up in double moves and things like that. So I don't have him in my top 5. And there's also the concerns about what's actually his playing weight because he does look pretty light there. So
sorry to cut you off there, but it seems like the scouts are very kind of sour on him. Seems like he's really sliding.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think this is, again, what is your defense looking for, right? So for perfect example.
I think he's a cover 3 guy for like a rangy safety type.
He's the exact same way you play Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
You just play deeper than the deepest, and you just make sure no one gets behind you. The only difference between him and Earl Thomas is he takes too many dumb chances. Earl Thomas doesn't take the dumb chance. That's why I don't have him in my top 5, Adrian. But I understand that the versatility and the range is all there. So then we get to my guy. So let's recap. So my number 1 here was Jonathan Abram. Chauncey Garner came in at 2. My number 3 is Taylor Rapp. My number 4 is Darnell Savage from Maryland. You want to talk about a guy who really has been climbing the ladder within the last 6 months. Darnell Savage is that guy. Came in, ran in the 4.3s, if I remember correctly, at 5'11", 190 pounds. And I was kind of surprised because Maryland wasn't a good football team. Let's call it what it is. So we're all going to talk more about guys who went to Clemson and went to Alabama and went to LSU. We're not talking about the teams that aren't as successful. But when you go back and you watch him, he's like an ASAP tackler. Every time the ball is thrown, he's right there. Does a great job at getting there. Really, really instinctive. Does a nice job at tackling in space. Coverage skills, a little bit concerning. I'm not confident that he's my single high safety per se. If I play a lot of cover 2 stuff, or if I could spin him down in the box, I'd like him a lot more. So that's why, Adrian, he's my next guy on my list here at the 4 spot.
Okay. He's my number 4 guy as well. Very rangy, very athletic, quick to read, aggressive to the ball. So there it is. Maryland, Darnell Savage, my number 4 as well. So that's number 5. So are you going to have Nasir Adderley at number 5?
He is my number 5 guy, Adrian.
So he does crack the top 5 in Brendan's list. I'm curious to get your thoughts then, why you're not as high on him as maybe others are.
Well, to be honest with you, Adrian, it was really close between 3 through 5 for me.
Yeah.
Like if you want to tell me Nasir Adderley is 3 and Taylor Rapp's 5, I'm okay with that. If you wanted to tell me that Darnell Savage is 3 and Rapp is number 4, I'm okay with that. I wouldn't, argue that adamantly about this. My top 2 guys I feel very confident about. But Nasir Adderley, when you're an FCS guy, you have to ace the offseason. You have to ace the Senior Bowl. You have to ace the Combine. And he did a really good job. But unfortunately for him, was dealing with a little bit of hip and foot issues, so he didn't run as fast as he wanted to. Now, I think we also have to say this. It's easy to say that after the fact. After you don't run well, it's easy to say that. I'm not saying that, he's full of shit, but that's a fair thing for anyone to be worried about here. So, and just like I talked about earlier with Rock Sin, if we're talking about criticizing the American, how the hell are you going to, praise the FCS as being elite level talent? Because it's not the SEC, obviously. But Adrian, on the pros, everything you said is 100% true. Versatility through the wazoo. There are teams who might even look at him as a true corner because he has that type of coverage ability. Yeah. He reminds me of a poor man's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Everything that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson does, Nasir Adderley does. The only problem is he does it at a much smaller level in the FCS and not in the ACC or SEC. So for that reason, Adrian, I have to have him below. But like I said, 3, 4, 5, I'm really cool with the order you want to put there.
Yeah. Okay. My number 5 is your number 1 guy, Jonathan Abram out of Mississippi State. You broke him down tremendously. The hitting, you just pops. So he pops people, he lays the wood, he lays the thunder, boom goes the dynamite. That's what he's about.
And he's a perfect example, though, Adrian, of what do you need, right? If I'm the Los Angeles Chargers, for example, there's no point for me taking him. I just drafted him in Derwin James, right? So all of a sudden a guy like Deonte Thompson from Alabama probably makes a little more sense for me because I already have that thumper. But again, if I'm the Indianapolis Colts, I don't need a single high guy. I need the thumper to play next to Malik Hooker. This becomes that conversation of what do we need, because that's going to change how we value these guys.
Yep. Okay, there it is. Those are our top 5s, cornerbacks, safeties. Anything else you want to comment about the Eagles and cornerback safety needs?
I think safety is the bigger need of the two, because when you look at the deals of the opposite safeties, both of those guys realistically are 1-year deals. Realistically, both of those guys can easily be cut and moved on from.
Yes.
So I think that's why a safety is a much bigger need here. When we talk about corner, man, I tell you what, if Greedy Williams is somehow on the board there, that gets a little tantalizing. I mean, that gets a little bit exciting for me because I'm like, oh, shoot, this guy would be really good in Jim Schwartz's defense. And you play that much off coverage and you want to play a lot of man coverage, yeah, that does look really good. I still don't think a first-round corner is as big of a need as some people believe, because I think the Eagles, they have more of a quantity and lack of quality at corner. But to me, I think maybe you draft a corner day 3.
Yeah, I'm with you. Safety, I can see it. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I can definitely see it. So don't be surprised if they hand in the card and you do hear that name, the name of 3-man name. So there you go, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's it. I haven't got anything. Oh, fuck, I forgot to plug your show in the beginning.
It's all good.
Guys, it's a running joke on this draft series.
And I, you know, the funny thing about this, like for anyone listening, I swear this is not intentional. Like Adrian's not intentionally doing this, or if he is, he's doing a really good job at never letting me know. But guys,
at least I'm plugging it and not plugging it at all. So at least I'm remembering.
That's true. Well, guys, if you enjoy listening to me, please check out my podcast. Again, it's at Burton TD. You can find us on Apple Music. You can find us on Spotify. We have our own website. We have our own Twitter account. So if you enjoy listening to me, you can check me out there. Got a lot of great guests, guys like Tyree St. Louis, offensive tackle prospect from the University of Miami, several guys from the Bleacher Report Stick to Football crew, which is essentially their answer to Mel Kiper and ESPN, have joined me in the past. So I would strongly encourage you guys to check us out over there.
Yes, please do, because it's great content, it's great stuff, and it's probably smarter than me. So there it is. That's Brennan Albert. I am Adrian Fedke. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our draft series. Draft's on Thursday. Can't wait. We're out.
Appreciate it.